Hello, chess family. It's me, National Master Jesse James, and today we're doing another installment of how to play the Smith-Morra White Perspective. In this game, I played a very good game. I believe it was like 94-95% accuracy. With that being said, I did not get to checkmate my opponent. I did not get to play crazy kingside attack. I actually had to take him into the endgame. So this variation is showing you how to play that variation where you go into the endgame, where it's okay. You can play endgames and still have a lot of fun. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get to it. Here we go. With that, I will be going over one little trap that we can play in this Smith-Morra endgame game. Anyways, here we go. E4, C5, the Sicilian. Pawn to D4. Pawn takes. Pawn to C3. We got our Smith-Morra. It's a free pawn. Please take. They obliged and they took. Knight takes on C3. Knight to C6. Here I played Bishop C4. Pawn to D6, Knight to F3, all the common spots where you're going to be putting your pieces. And here my opponent makes a very common bad move that gets played by a lot of players, Knight to F6. And believe it or not, white is already better here. We're down a pawn, but we're better. What do you play here to get your advantage? Here you get to play pawn to E5. And taking the pawn is not a very good move. I mean, most people here will take, but it's going to lead to this very bad endgame, which has a very nice endgame, checkmate that, well, my opponent did sniff out, but still, I've had it done at least twice before against my opponents. Here they played pawn takes on E5, and now the best move, we're going to go ahead and trade queens here. Here, knight takes on D8. If you do play king takes on D8, it doesn't really make sense. You're going to lose the F7 pawn, and you could just play knight G5. You'll win the pawn next here. You're threatening knight takes on F7. White is just better in these games. So knight takes D8 gets played. And here, do not take the pawn on E5. Here we play knight to B5, threatening the simple knight to C7 check, which attacks both the rook and the king. And here my opponent played the best move, which was rook B8. In fast games, my opponents have played this blunderous move of king to D7, and it is now white to move and checkmate in 2 moves. What do you play? Here you get to play the very nice knight takes on E5 check, and believe it or not, all the squares are taken by these little pieces. The king must run back to E8, and now we play knight C7, not only forking the rook, but checkmating in 1 move. Oof, I love to play that one. But here my opponent knew this trap and goes ahead and plays the best move, rook over to B8. And here I did not play the best move here. Here I usually make this little mistake because, well, it just looks so natural. I go ahead and play knight takes on A7, winning my pawn back. And, well, just a good position here. I mean, the computer says it's equal, but looking at the pieces and how they're placed, I definitely like my position better. But here the computer says, you know what? You should go ahead and play knight C7 check. And after king to D7, then play the knight back to B5, which is crazy to think about because I always think, well, don't they just play A6? Well, guess what? They fall for the checkmate yet again. Knight takes on E5 check, king to E8, knight C7 checkmate. So I'm going to have to add this into my repertoire next time I play. But like I said, I made the mistake here. Knight takes on A7. I won a pawn here, but you know, when you see a good move, look for a better one. Here my opponent played pawn to E6. Knight takes on E5. It's a free pawn. Might as well grab it. Here, bishop b4 check got played. And here I just played king e2. Either way, I'm not going to be able to castle. And, well, king e2 is actually a very good move because now it allows my rook to slide out. I remember in endgames, well, the king belongs in the center because I don't know where it's going to be moving to help get the pawns across the board. So the king is usually very safe here too. All right, here my opponent went ahead and castled. And here I went ahead and developed with a threat. Bishop to G5, which made sense to me. I'm trying to take on on F6 right here and give him, well, some double pawns. The computer doesn't like this as much. And here, rook A8 got played. And here again, I played inaccurately. I love my knights. Maybe that's my downfall. And I went ahead and played knight to B5. Best move is just to go ahead and play knight takes and grab the bishop pair, which I can definitely say, looking back at it, I definitely think this is a very good move. But I played knight b5 here. Knight to c6, saying, hey, let's make a trade. Here, it is definitely a good idea to go ahead and take here. Why? After knight takes, pawn takes, well, what I've done here is create an isolated pawn on an open file. And here, I've also created a pass pawn over here. For those of you who don't know, a pass pawn is a pawn that has no pawn next to it. So I already have an endgame advantage with this idea. And as I said, not all games for Smith-Morra are going to lead to very good middle games. Sometimes they lead to very good end games. Here I'm very happy with my position right here. Here I got to move my knight. And here I did not choose the best square. I played knight to c3. The computer points out knight d4 is a much stronger move, putting pressure on the pawn right away. Knight c3 is still a decent move. Knight to d5 got played, a bad move for them. I went ahead and played bishop d2. Of course, I don't want to take on d5, as this would just help their pawn structure out. Knight takes, pawn takes. Now they have two beautiful center pawns. So now it's 2 pawns over here versus 2 pawns over here. No need to create these complications. Here I just played the bishop back to d2. And here my opponent made a mistake and took on c3. Perfect. Pawn takes on c3. Bishop has to retreat. And, well, what do you do in endgames? There's 2 major ideas. You either win your opponent's pawns or you try to get a pawn across the board. So the saying is, past pawns must be pushed. Let's get to it. Here I played pawn to a4. My opponent played bishop a6. Not a bad idea. Here their idea is, although this is a very good pawn because it is a passed pawn, this is also a weak pawn because there's 3 different types of pawn weaknesses. Isolated, backwards, and double pawns. Here, this is called the isolated pawn right here. Why is it isolated? It is a pawn that has no pawn next to it, meaning it has to be defended by the other pieces. So bishop a6 is a nice idea because, well, I don't think I have any other better moves. I should go ahead and take. Rook takes. Now they're planning on doubling up their rooks. But that's okay. I have my own ideas here. I went ahead and played pawn a5. Rook over to a8. And now the idea, pawn to c4. And I very much like this position. The computer's now giving me a nice little plus right here. Pawn to f5 got played. A weird looking move here. If I was playing a little bit more positional, I might have played pawn to f4. But here I went ahead and played rook over to b1. This makes sense to me. The rook can either go to b7, where it's very active. Rooks on the 7th are very active. Or, well, you can just go ahead and defend the pawn maybe later on. And here my opponent made a blunderous move and played bishop to b6. It is now white to move and win. What do you play here? All right, guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and give us that like and subscribe. Remember, liking is going to share this with more chess players. All right, did you find the move here? It might be a little tricky, but thankfully for me, I can calculate more than 2 moves ahead. And here the move was A takes on b6 here. What was the idea? Well, if you, I hear someone saying, isn't rook takes b6 a good move? Unfortunately, this move is not the best move. After rook takes, pawn takes, rook takes, it looks like b7 should be good. But after this, rook to b1, not good anymore. You're going to lose your pawn, and you will just be losing. Black's best try here, or white's best try here, should be something like bishop c3. And although this is slightly better, A takes b6 is just winning by force. Well, after this, I mean, I'm just up I just won a piece here. What's the black's only real try here? He plays rook takes on a1, and here's the winning idea. After rook takes on a1, winning a piece, now you play pawn to b7, and here we see the simple idea of the overloaded piece. The rook is trying to stop the pawn from getting across the board, but also defending the other rook. There is just no good move here. Either I will take, or I will be pushing forward, or I'll be winning a rook over here. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this. Remember, this was an installment for how to play the Smith-Morra. Remember, not every Smith-Morra is going to lead to a middle game, queen sacrifice, fun attacking game. Sometimes you're just going to have to take a slightly better position in your end game. And remember, the idea here is whenever they play knight to f6, you play pawn to e5. This will take you into that very good endgame. Remember, knight b5 is the best move. Do not take the pawn, as you'll be threatening that knight to c7 check move. Like I said, some people make the mistake and go king d7. Knight takes e5, king e8, knight takes c7 for the checkmate. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you in the next video.